Yo, what's good? It's Capital X TV. Not sure what episode this is. I just decided to film this piece. I am looking into the case of Kyle Rittenhouse. His trial is ongoing. Well, basically, they closed the trial. The jury was in day 3 of deliberation yesterday. I actually filmed a couple of these on this topic, but decided to scrap them because, I started to get, all up in my in my feels, and I just, trying to tone it down here and just, add my 2 cents to the table. I usually don't feed into the news, reading, news on many things, but those that, I see are really just popping up everywhere on my timeline. It's all up on my feeds, and, it's just everywhere. So I got curious, and this case is kind of right up my alley, seeing that I deal with the criminal justice system and that, it's a pretty intense case that has the people of the U.S. and worldwide divided, and the comments are crazy. But I see the comments, from the people kind of tip more towards the whole, agreeing with self-defense, his self-defense, pleading self-defense. That's what his attorneys are claiming, So they built their whole defense on that stance, self-defense. And man, like I said, I get caught up in my feelings on this because I just have to say it, if there had been a group of black or Hispanic men roaming the streets armed like that, the scenario would have played out differently. There's no way, around that, thinking about that, without question. If Kyle himself had been black or Hispanic, he probably would not have lived to have his day in court. If you disagree with that, then you're not living in reality, But going beyond, race and anything of that nature, let's just look at the facts here, Was he in his right? Was he defending himself? Was his life being threatened? Was he legally, carrying that weapon? And which is strange because I agree with some video footage that I've seen of police being interviewed, and actually the mayor of Kenosha. I agree with them. That boy had no business being where he was, regardless of the circumstances and regardless of his, intent. Even if he had good intentions, he had no business being there. It wasn't like the state put out an all-points bulletin asking, neighboring states and people to arm themselves and come help with the situation. I think it was probably the opposite. They were trying, to keep people from attending even the protests, And let's get that out there. The people had a right to protest. I know they're trying to pass laws against protests, because they started blocking the streets, and I had seen a law that they were trying to pass, basically, that would jail protesters and basically giving the green light for motorists to run down protesters if they block traffic, which that was crazy. I know there's been a few states that tried to pass anti-protest laws, and a lot of them, a lot of those bills have died, thank God, because, our right to protest and to speak out is, is a big part of our freedom. So those protesters had a right to be out there. No, the looting and all that, okay, is definitely not cool, you know. I mean, I understand it though. It's like people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you get the shit end of the stick once too many times, you're gonna start swinging that shit around. That's But yeah, was he legally carrying that weapon? You know, um, I have read a little bit into this, and yeah, it says they have laxed open and carry laws there in Kenosha, but it does say that under Wisconsin statutes, anyone under 18 who goes armed with any deadly weapon is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. Kyle Rittenhouse was 17 at the time, so no, he was not old enough to carry an assault rifle the way he did. So how the judge dropped that weapons charge, is beyond me. It's pretty clear that he was in violation of that. The fact that it's only an A misdemeanor, in Kenosha is pretty insane. Try that in New York or somewhere, you do some serious time, especially for automatic weapon. If you ain't carrying it legally, I don't even know. I'm not sure what the open carry laws are in New York anymore. I've been gone for a long time, but I know that an automatic weapon, you would automatically get 10 years just for carrying, being in possession of an automatic weapon or semi-automatic weapon. But it does go on, to say that there is an exception to that law, for the carrying weapons. It is said that the exception to the law states it's intended to allow people that are 16 and 17 to carry their weapons out to go hunting. And that exception was believed to be why the charge was dropped. But I mean, it was nighttime, and he was walking the streets during this protest, so he obviously wasn't going hunting, unless in the judge's mind he was hunting. And that's what was on my mind when I seen him and his militia buddies roaming the streets armed like that. I was like, yeah, they hunting. You know what I mean? They was hunting. But, I mean, let's be real here. He was not on his way to go hunt Bambi. He was not on his way to go hunt Bambi. So as we all know, he crossed the state line to go to this protest. I saw an interview with him. Somebody had interviewed him before everything took place, and he was saying that he was just there to lend a hand to those that needed aid medically. But yet, he was armed. Because he also said that he was there to protect property. I believe he said initially he was contacted by someone in the area who wanted to protect, his business. I think it was a used car lot or something like that. But then there's the question, are you allowed to use deadly force to protect property in Kenosha? The simple answer is no. You're not allowed to use deadly force to protect property. So, him and his boys that was, supposedly called to protect this, used car lot, they weren't justified holding these, automatic weapons because, it's against the law to use deadly force to protect property, So then again, you gotta, wonder why were they armed to the teeth the way they were and dressed the way they were, This militia, yeah, they look militant out there. And once again, I gotta say, if it was a black militia out there, even with the best intentions, yeah, it probably would have set off a civil war, a race war. There's no question about that, you know. So what I see is no, he did not have the right to carry that weapon. And no, he did not have the right to use deadly force to protect property. So, they're sitting there armed trying to intimidate people. I have to look at it like, if this is my state, my neighborhood, and I see these armed people that I've never seen before coming through, it would, raise questions like, what the fuck is y'all doing here? And straight up, if that did go down in my neighborhood, we would have definitely chased them out. We would have definitely, done something to chase them out of there, and dead that situation. And I believe that's kind of what took place. People were concerned about these armed individuals roaming the streets while they was trying to protest a worthy cause. So the first confrontation that took place, it got heated. I seen the video footage, homeboy threw what seemed to be a plastic bag at Kyle. And Kyle started to run, and they started to chase him. And yeah, people have commented on that. He was armed. Why he was running away from unarmed individuals pursuing him, it's like, dude, why'd you even have a gun then, if you couldn't control that situation. I also heard one of Carl's buddies interviewed and said that, yeah, that Kyle, did I say Carl before? But it's Kyle. That Kyle was in over his head. I mean, he's 17 years old. Inexperienced. I know he's had some training in some cadet school or whatever, but he was not prepared to be in such a situation. That's obvious. So he was running from these people, and they say that, yeah, that was proper. You try to avoid using, deadly force at all costs. So he was running, but at one point, he did turn around, and that's when he shot his first victim. So I'm not in the U.S., so I don't have to adhere by the judge's, strange ruling that the individual shot can't be called victims. It's obvious that judge is setting up the situation for Kyle to be found not guilty, to be acquitted. That's easy to see by the fact that he dropped the weapons charge, and by stating that the prosecution was not allowed to address the individuals that were killed as victims. That's crazy. But that first encounter, the first victim that was shot, that's where they're saying, I saw little clips of the trial, and the defense attorney was saying, was looking at the video saying how he lunged at Kyle before he shot. But, you can't excuse the fact that Kyle could have kept running, but instead he chose to turn around and he fired his weapon and struck his first victim. I don't know them by name, so that's why I'm just calling them the victims, man. They were killed. And we'll address the fact that they're trying to make these victims to be villains because of their history. But anyway, I don't know the details of the first victim's wounds, but it has been mentioned that the last shot fired was in the back, and that was the one that did the most damage. Like I said, don't know, I wasn't there, but watching the video, like I said, he's running from this crowd, you know, and he turned around and then fired upon, you know, his first victim, who was, you know, close on it, but he could have kept running. You know, I said, you're looking at it depending on what, you know, which way you're looking at it. It's like, okay, I'm being chased down, I have the right to protect myself. Or you could look at it from the crowd's view. It's like, we're from here, we're here at this protest. You know, this guy looks like an active, you know, he's an active shooter. He was trying to intimidate these people. You know, they're trying to say Kyle didn't use intimidation and whatnot, but there's been a lot of comments stating that he was trying to intimidate people, telling, you know, pointing the gun and telling them to back off and whatnot. I mean, straight up, in my opinion, when he crossed that state line to attend that protest armed, yeah, all bets was off right there. He went looking for trouble. You know, that whole militia was there looking for trouble, and they found trouble. At least he did anyway, you know what I'm saying? And though the weapon was legal, you know, legally from the state, like I said earlier, he had no right carrying that weapon. He shouldn't have crossed that state line. And like I said earlier as well, I agree with the police and the mayor. He just had no business being there. So anyway, after he shot and killed his first victim, that's when he started to run down the street, and everybody was chasing him. That part of the video is what most people are viewing. You know, that first confrontation, I believe it was just released recently from a drone video or something. And you see the dude throw the bag at him, and then they start chasing him, like I said, and he ran a little bit, then turned around and fired on him. So after that, he's running down the street and everybody's chasing him. At that point, in everybody's mind, he was an active shooter. He was the aggressor, and they were trying to stop him. Like I said, if this happened in your neighborhood, how would you handle it? You know, would you just, you know, I mean, you got an active shooter running around. I mean, he just killed somebody, and they was trying to stop him. I saw video clips where you could hear people yelling to the police, yo, he just shot and killed somebody. And when they caught up to him, yeah, they started beating him down, you know, and I saw that as justified, to be honest with you. You know, once again, he shouldn't have been out there with that rifle to begin with. They was trying to stop him. And yeah, unfortunately, Kyle, you know, caught himself there, and he fired, and he killed yet another young man and wounded another. Now let's get to the part where people are trying to make these victims, you know, into villains, you know, which is something that is done often, you know, to black victims. They right away start digging in their history, trying to justify the fact that they was, you know, murdered, you know, and yeah, it's serious allegations, or, you know, some serious charges. One was supposedly a pedophile, and one was, you know, had some domestic violence charges and whatever. But the fact is that they was out in the street. They wasn't wanted. They was free. So whatever they did, they had paid their debt to society. So you're judging these individuals by, you know, something they had done. You know, we don't know what their character was at the moment. Just because someone has a, you know, a pedophile charge, you don't know their situation. And the fact is, they wasn't running around with signs or with a t-shirt that said, I'm a pedophile, or, you know, I'm an ex-felon, you know, domestic violence, whatever. So Kyle could have shot, it could have been anybody out there that was trying to stop him, thinking that he was an active shooter, you know. So yeah, that, it has nothing to do with anything, you you know, what these individuals had done in their past. You got to look at the situation that it could have been your son, your brother, your father, you know, that was out there protesting, like I said, a worthy cause, and yeah, and it could have been them, you know. And the fact is whatever, you know, I don't care what these guys' past is. Every human has the right to live. We don't have the right to be offing people. I mean, I'm against the death penalty. That's an obvious thing. So, you know, I'm not saying that people shouldn't pay for their, you know, their crimes. That's not what I'm saying. I just said we don't have the right to be taking the lives of others. So those brothers had a right to live. This young man didn't have the right to take their lives, no matter what the circumstances were. And none of this would have happened if he would have just stayed home. He would have just stayed out of Kenosha. None of this would have happened, you know. So, yeah, man, it's a crazy situation, and I said it's got a lot of people divided. The comments are insane. Like I said, it seems like a majority of them are sticking up, saying that, you know, he defended himself and that he had every right. I'm like, man, the moment he crossed that state line, all that went out the window. He didn't have the right. If he was in his home state, in his town, and he was trying to protect his home or, you know, or his business, I could see, you know, and people were charging him while he was standing in front of his home or in front of his business. They charge him, then I could see, okay, it might be self-defense. But that's not the case. He ain't even, you know, he had no business being there. It wasn't his, you know, state. It wasn't his town. It wasn't his business that he was protecting. You know, so I don't know what, you know, what the argument is. I'm sorry, but I feel that he should definitely be found guilty. You know, probably not a popular opinion, but, you know, looking at everything, and having, you know, my experience with the criminal justice system. I mean, I have been on trial before, you know, more than once, you know, lost one, won one. You know, I've been in and around the criminal justice system for more than half of my life. You know, I learned it from the inside and from the outside. I've spent, you know, a substantial amount of time in law libraries reading different laws. I know they vary from state to state, but, you know, still, it gives me, you know, more of a mentality to look at this. You know, I hear all the arguments, you know, I see his defense is going to work. I see the prosecutor making mistakes, which could be done on purpose. You have no idea how these situations unfold. I mean, when they want you, they're going to get you. There's no question about it. They will do whatever it takes to get you if they want you. And if they want you to walk, same thing, man. They will manipulate, you know, the whole production that they put out for people to see. They'll manipulate the whole thing to make it, you know, acceptable by the public. You know, that's just how it is. I've long ago learned that trials, you know, have nothing to do with finding out the truth. It has nothing to do with justice, you know. It has to do with, you know, the end game being what they want it to be, how they want it to be. That's all there is to it. And they put on these great productions, you know. It's like in the courtroom, it'd be like a rap battle. The prosecutor comes out and spits his case, then the defense attorney comes and spits his case, and the one who puts on the best show wins. And, you know, a majority of the time, the prosecutor with his, you know, endless resources puts on the best show. You know, it's a hard act to follow. So defense attorneys, you know, they go down in flames. But in a case like this, where, you know, they're trying to protect an individual, then they kind of just flip the script, you know, and they allow for the defense attorney to shine, and the prosecutor will dumb it down. You know, it wouldn't be the first time. It's definitely not going to be the last. So, anyway, that's my little 2 cents, man. You know, I had to put it out there because, like I said, it really, yeah, it dug into me because straight up, man, I know that if Kyle was black or Hispanic, this whole thing would play out so differently. By now, headlines would have read, you know, thug, yeah, terrorist. But, you know, it ain't like that with this case. It's, you know, teen. You know, a teen gets arrested, you know. They try and soften it up and make him look, you know, yeah, like a preacher boy, like a Cub Scout. And that's wrong. You know, in my eyes, Kyle Rittenhouse is a thug. You know, and he went there with his gang, you know, which I've read that they have ties to a white supremacy group. I read that it was this white supremacy militia that called upon its members and affiliates to head to Kenosha armed, you know. And like I said, I understand that the people cannot stand the looting and the rioting and all that, you know, when protest. But from what I understand, you know, this protest was peaceful until this happened, and I know that there was, you know, riots going off and all that because of the situation. But you got to dig deeper, you know. It's like, yeah, it's a shame to see people destroying their own city, but there's a reason for it. People just, they get fed up, you know, and like I believe it was Martin Luther King that said, you know, that riots, that's the language of the unheard. So we try to talk, we try to scream, we try to petition, and when none of that works, we get frustrated, and that frustration, you know, comes out with flames. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Like I said, yo, hit the comments up, let me know what you think. Yeah, I'm ready for the shitstorm if you want to start it. I'm just asking you to keep it respectful, and I will. But I want to hear from you. Do you think this kid really, you know, should really be acquitted? Did he really, was it really self-defense? You know, or was he in the wrong? And should he be found guilty? You know, if I was on the jury, I'm sorry to say that the situation that unfolded were due to his poor choices. The first one being crossing that state line and attending that protest, no matter what his intent, you know, his intentions were. And his second mistake was arming himself with that AR-15. So that's my opinion. So what's yours? Share in the comments below. And yeah, man, make sure you hit the subscribe and hit that notification bell so we can keep kicking it. This is Capital X TV. Peace.